Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I just want to touch base on Miss Lindy Li, who's making the rounds lately. Now, it was very entertaining watching her explain how the Harris campaign totally fumbled the bag when it came to all of that donation money that they received during the campaign. And she has been making rounds on all of social media and these networks, yanking back the curtain on the Democratic Party behind the scenes. And she appeared on Piers Morgan, and there was a MAGA-ite that was roasting her because he just felt as if she was not trustworthy. And it really is funny to me because you have a lot of people who do not appreciate the fact that if it were not for people who normally do not vote Republican that came out and voted Republican, Donald Trump would not be the president right now. A lot of people in the Senate and Congress would not be there right now. So it always amazes me to see how people who say, well, I've been a Republican all my life, you're late to the game, or I supported Trump from the very beginning, you're just now getting on the Trump train, or different things like that. If it wasn't for Donald Trump, the Republican Party would not have grown. The Republicans would not be in power right now. You have to really just listen to yourselves, because J.D. Vance used to be a Democrat. He used to publicly bash Trump. Donald Trump himself was friends with the Clintons and used to be a Democrat himself. So, make it make sense with all of this ridiculous. What do you guys want? You want a cookie? You want people that you want to shrink the Republican Party? Or do you want to grow the Republican Party? Do you want to grow the conservative movement? Because it just doesn't make sense, the criticism. But I'm going to play a little clip from Piers.
Well, I'm looking at this panel, Piers. It leans left, let's call it that way. And I'm fine. Let's do it. Let's bring it on. I'm used to panels like this. Julie,
I think you'll find that Lindy has drunk the conservative Kool-Aid since you last saw her.
Eric, yeah. I'm not sure if you remember, but just a few weeks ago, you retweeted an attack on me.
Oh, I like this start. Come on, what was that about?
Oh, no,
you did.
I'll tell you exactly what it was.
You
remember?
Be
very, very careful. Yes, of course I do. I remember. I said that I believe you could be a Trojan horse. I believe that someone who spent the better part of the last election supporting Biden and Kamala Harris all of a sudden sees the light after Donald Trump wins an election. I mean, you're not that much different from Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and the rest of them. But I think we should all be careful.
You're a busy guy, Eric. So I don't blame you for not paying attention on media appearances. But I've been criticizing Biden well before Election Day. I raised concerns, and that's why I faced blowback from the Democratic Party.
I've been pretty much MAGA since the day one, and as someone who I think speaks for a lot of MAGA folks, I recommend we just be very wary of the folks that are late to the game. Not that they're not welcome.
Hey,
You're welcome.
I know that I have a lot to prove, but give me a chance to prove that. Don't shut the door. I have a lot to offer, and you're not going to find a harder worker. I'm already working hard to make sure that we nail the midterms, because this is absolutely pivotal. We can't go back to woke and the trans insanity. I am done with that.
I mean, it's an interesting thing, Eric, isn't it? Because, I mean, if I were you, I would feel equally, not smug's not the right word, but equally like, hang on, I was there from the start supporting Trump and the MAGA movement. Now you've got all these people trotting down to Mar-a-Lago or making these huge conversions on the political Damascene conversion road. And I think you're right to probably be a little bit sceptical. Not of Lindy, who I've on a few times. I'm not saying for a moment, Lindy, you're not.
I'm a nice one, Eric. And I don't want anything. I don't
Okay,
feel like I don't want
so allow me,
job.
Lindy, allow me. Let me ask you. So there are all these tech bros, as I mentioned, Jeff Bezos, even Elon Musk came over, Mark Zuckerberg and the others that came, and then this HB1 visa issue came up, and all of a sudden the tech bros departed from their support of conservative, support of MAGA, and certainly support of Trump's original stakeout on it. And so my point is, well, be careful, because they're saying, they're spending a lot of money at Trump's inauguration, and Melania's got a $40 million epic deal with Amazon. That's great, but just be careful, because you flip this way, I can see you flipping back the other way.
Eric,
can I just say, I agree with Eric.
Stuck with me.
You're
stuck with me. I'm a conservative now. I've crossed my river Rubicon.
I'm happy to bestow undying gratitude to Eric Bolling, who I used to sit next to on The Five and other shows at Fox for a long time, and I can tell you he was MAGA from the very beginning. He stuck by it through thick and thin. When Trump was in, when Trump was out, Eric, you were always MAGA. And I would say I would be a little suspicious of people who would have been with Kamala Harris had she won the election, but suddenly, as soon as somebody else comes into power, they suddenly flip and decide they're going to support Donald Trump. So I do agree, Eric. Say what you will about you. You and I don't agree on anything, but you were misguided about MAGA from the very beginning, and you stuck by it. And I'm very suspicious. I am very suspicious of people who suddenly flit to power like moth to a flame, because I'm positive, Lindy, that if Kamala Harris had won, you would be here defending her to the hilt.
Julie, there are some things that I did not know before Election Day. Wait a minute. For example, we had no idea that they lied to us about the 3 to 4 battleground states that we were supposed to win. That's what they told us, to get us to go out there and ask for friends. Don't be skeptical. That's what they told us. That's what James.
But Lindy, Lindy, hang on.
Yeah, but I mean, see, the more Lindy does this, the more people are going to be, skeptical of her, because of the simple fact that you were trying to get Kamala Harris elected. And see, this is the problem that really I have with a lot of Democrats. That's why it was really to the point where it was sickening to be around them, is because for the most part, the conservatives or the ones that are moderate, they really do not like the direction that the party is going, but yet they keep voting for it. You see what I'm saying? It comes a point where, and I think this last election, a lot of people just got to the point where they just couldn't do it anymore. The policies were just so far to the left where they were trying to yank the country off the cliff. And, Lindy, she's sitting there rolling up her sleeves, raising money to get people elected whose policies she really don't support. And I'm glad she's having her come to truth moment where she has to reconcile her public stances with her vote and her volunteerism and her support, because it's a conflict. And for a lot of people, it's a moral conflict. Some of the things that the Democrat Party of today is pushing. You can't be so loyal to a party over people and over your own country. It just isn't right. And so when you're looking at these policies of how these people are just 10 toes down, doubling down on some of these policies, even going as far as trying to teach people how to evade ICE and evade the law, and, little kids getting transition surgery. And I mean, kids can't even really make up their mind for a lot of things, can't consent to getting a tattoo. but they can. It's just nuts, and you know, I can understand why people would be a little skeptical of Lindy, because you were really working hard to continue the agenda that the left was pushing and trying to get Kamala Harris elected. So
that's an interesting question, though, isn't it? If Kamala Harris had won, and everyone thought, according to the polls, it was all going to be so close. I didn't. I went on Fox 10 days before and said Trump's going to win big. So I'm taking the Eric Bolling victory lap on that. However, if Kamala Harris had won big, be honest, would you now be out here as a big convert to all things Trump? Or do you think you may have gone for the ride with Kamala? Because that's really what Eric is getting at, which is how strong is your actual conviction?
Pierce, remember the first time I was here, I've been on here 3 times. The first time I was here, I was a solid Democrat. I was trying to reform things from within, right?
Yeah.
By that time, I was still very much within the family. In December, remember that interview?
You could forget about trying to change the Democratic Party from within. I mean, you could forget about that. They are so far crazed off. I mean, it's like save your soul at this point. It's like it's a burning house. The only thing you could do at this point is get out. That's how bad the Democratic Party is at this point. There's no leadership. Their policies are cuckoo puffs. There is no reforming it from within. We've seen parties in history of American history come and go. The Democratic Party is so cooked, it's burnt. And there will be new parties emerging. That's why the Republicans need to walk a fine line. Either you want to grow your tent or you don't. You can't be alienating people who are coming over, because as the Democratic Party dies, there will be new parties emerging. And Trump is only going to be there for 4 years. And you have to realize the person that most likely will get the nomination after Trump leaves, J.D. Vance, he used to be a Democrat. So he didn't even like Trump in the beginning. So are you concerned if he's going to flip-flop?
Our segment went viral.
Yeah,
why? Because I laid out what happened to me. I've been called a cunt and a whore. I'm just going to say it right now. Cunt, whore, bitch, whatever, a Chinese spy, for asking questions about what happened to the money that I raised, for asking why we double down on the woke.
No, but I'm not questioning. Just to be clear, I'm not questioning anything that you said, or that wasn't repellent the way you were treated, or any of those things. But that was all post the results. And
what I mean is, I tried to stay until I couldn't.
No, I get it. But that was more to do with you saying you wasted all this money and them abusing you and so on. That's a kind of different issue. The question, which is quite a valid one. And it kind of, Eric started this and Julie's kind of cemented the questioning, if you like, which is, and that's two people from opposing sides, both equally skeptical. If you're honest, if Kamala Harris had won, would you now be on a show like this as a diehard pro-Trumper? Or is it more likely if the Democrats had won, you'd have tried to help reform them and move forward from within, but from a winning position?
Well, what I mean is, Pierce, I tried to reform them. I've been here in December, I was still a Democrat. I was explaining why I couldn't be a Democrat anymore. The egregious treatment.
I get that, but you're slightly avoiding the question, which I do think is a valid question. I'm trying to answer
it. Sorry.
Well, you've been accused of being a Trojan horse by Eric, but Julie has rightly pointed out from the other side, well, hang on, if our side had won, right, where would you be now? Because ideologically, it's a massive, massive move to go from somebody who supports Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to somebody who supports Donald Trump.
I've always been on the conservative wing of the party, and there's a paper trail. 5 years ago, I went to war with the Bernie Bros. That's how I emerged on the public scene. That's how I got my start. I, as a conservative, refused to vote for Bernie Sanders because he went against everything I believed in.
I think the question, Lindy, I'm going to ask one more time. The question really is, would you have been identifying as a conservative if Kamala Harris.
That's what I mean. Like 5 years ago, I was already identifying as a conservative and attacking.
Yeah, I think that's what people are confusing. You could be a conservative and not be a Republican. You know, I mean, Republicans is a political party. The Democratic Party is a political party. You know, but you can have conservative values and be an independent or a Democrat or a Republican. In some parts of the country, the Democrats are more conservative. In some parts, they're more, I don't even know if you could use the word liberal for them anymore. They're so far off the cuckoo land left. I mean, they've gone into cuckoo hysteria, like blue Kool-Aid, like, I mean, they're eating blue mushrooms, like they are smoking blue weed, like they have really gone off the deep end for real. But you could be a conservative and just be an independent. You know, so just because someone has a conservative ideology, but the problem is, the problem that I had as a Democrat is you're sitting around, some things you may agree with, but for a lot of stuff you're finding more and more as time went on, you just don't agree with what they're doing. And the moderates and the conservatives of the Democratic Party are stuck in a position of either leaving the party or staying in the party to try to right the ship a little. And that's what Lindy was saying that she was trying to do. But these people are just like blue zombie apocalypse. There is no reforming the Democratic Party. The only way to reform the Democratic Party is if they get a hardcore, no nonsense, tell it like it is conservative that's not afraid to, that's just not afraid to take the punches that's going to come from that far left that's going to thrash. I mean, you know, they're going to buck, they're going to thrash, they're going to scream, they're going to holler, but they would need a strong leader that is moderate and conservative that's saying, no, we're not doing that. We're not going in that direction. Or finding out what it is that that fringe wants and see how we can bring it to something that makes sense. Because the Democratic Party, like, for example, with the immigration thing, of course people should be able to immigrate, and just because you were born somewhere doesn't mean you have to stay there for the rest of your life. So of course people should be able to travel and immigrate and things like that. But if you're not for open borders and sucking the taxpayers' money dry to support these people that are just flooding up in here, then they say, oh, well, you're anti-immigrant. Like, everything's an extreme with them. If you're not for children transitioning and getting surgery, oh, you're anti-trans. I mean, like, everything's an extreme. If you don't want kindergarteners learning how to suck something in a book, they have all these crazy books that they're trying to push on these elementary school kids. Oh, you're anti-LGBTQIA, LMNOP. I mean, it's like it's like if you're not for people shoplifting and the stores start shutting down because they're not profiting and it's dangerous for the employees. Oh, you're not for the black and brown communities because you're taking the grocery stores out of the black and brown community. Well, why don't you tell the black and brown people to stop robbing the store? You know, it's like everything's extreme with them. Like they just smoked something that tripped their brain and they hadn't come back from it. But
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, but that's not my question. My question was, if Kamala had won, would you now be appearing on this panel as a conservative or as a Democrat?
I would be appearing, if not as a conservative Republican, I would be appearing as a conservative Democrat, as I've always been. I have tons of Fox News articles over the years identifying myself as a conservative Democrat. Come on, I've had this around my neck for 15 years, okay? Faith is a very important thing.
Look, call me old-fashioned, but what is a conservative Democrat? I mean, aren't you either one or the other?
I'm sorry?
Well, aren't you either a conservative or a Democrat?
When I first became
I wasn't aware of
Democrat,
this weird hybrid where you could be both.
Well, I'm from suburban Pennsylvania. When I first became a Democrat, it was actually pre-Obama. We believed in middle-class values, fiscal responsibility, like moderation. We didn't think that biological men should be in women's sports. That's a fairly recent development, I think. Like in the past 5 years, I'm not in favor of that. I think that's absolutely just lunacy. These are recent developments. The woke and the trans insanity, the DEI stuff, I didn't sign up for that. I just didn't. And I was terrified of vocalizing my opposition.
Yeah, well, I'm not. She's from the Philadelphia area. I was born and raised there myself. It's like I was out there not too long ago, and I had voted, and just walking into the polling place, they had all the Democrat stuff all outside. They had the workers in there. Yeah, we voting Democrat. That's all we can do. Just just talking Democrats up, going into the polling place and the polling workers. So especially for Black people, it's like, of course you're going to register as a Democrat. Of course you're going to vote Democrat. And then you're sitting there looking at these policies and certain things, and you're like, I don't agree with that. And you actually have the audacity to think that you are going to have any type of say or input in any policy or platform. You can forget it, especially if you're Black. They don't want to hear anything from you. You're supposed to just shut the F up and vote Democrat. And I think that during the last election, Black people, the ones that didn't just shut the F up and vote Democrat, they said, no, I don't support these policies. I mean, it takes a very strong person to break away from the herd and say, no, I don't support this stuff, so I'm not going to continue to vote for it, right? I'm not going to, but, Lindy, she really, is digging herself a little hole, because she just said that had Kamala won, she would still be a Democrat, but she would still be a conservative Democrat. Moderate Democrats and conservative Democrats in today's society is just like it's like a oxymoron, it's not possible anymore, because the party has been drugged so far to the left that it's just lunaticville. And as far as the Republicans are concerned, there is that large number of conservatives that are going to be looking for candidates who reflect what they want to see policy-wise. And the Republicans would be foolish to not capitalize on that.